Welcome to Math Blossoms, where growing in mathematics is natural. I am the teacher, Miss G, and for today's math topic, we are learning how to find the volume of a cylinder. And this is the first of 3 videos. We're going to do another one coming up on how to find the volume of a cone. And the final video in the 3-part series is how to find the volume of a sphere or hemisphere. So let's get started with these cylinders. The volume of a cylinder is the measurement of the space inside of the cylinder. The units for volume are cubed units. Example, centimeters cubed, inches cubed, feet cubed, that kind of thing. Because we are dealing with 3-dimensional shapes. A cylinder is like a can shaped. I'm going to show you some examples actually in real life. The first one is like a can of soup. That's cylinder shaped. Also a pencil cup. I have some of these in the classroom. Sometimes trash bins are shaped like cylinders as well. And then we have some candles that are cylinder shaped. Batteries can sometimes be cylinder shaped. Soda pop cans. Potato chips can come in cylinder cans as well. And of course, your toilet paper rolls are also cylinder shaped. So these are just a few examples of what cylinders look like. So how do you measure the volume of the cylinder or the space inside of it? The first thing you do is find the area of the base of the cylinder. The base of the cylinder is the circular part of the cylinder on each end. So after you find the area of one of the circles or one of the bases of the cylinder, you just multiply that times the height of the cylinder, which is the distance between the 2 circles. So if you look at the cylinder here, you can see that there are 2 circular bases, one on top and one on bottom. And the formula for the area of a circle, I'm going to write it here under the formula for the volume of a cylinder, is pi times the radius squared. So if you're trying to find the area of the circular part of the cylinder, you're going to use that formula to do that. And it's embedded in the formula for the volume of a cylinder. Once you find that area, you just multiply it times the height, which is the distance between the 2 circles, and you're good to go. Okay. Let's try some examples of this. And of course, the radius is from the center to the edge of the circle. And it doesn't matter if you draw it here or draw it there. It's going to be the same distance from the center to the edge all around the circle. And this will also match the circle on the bottom. So this will be, the same measure as this, even though it doesn't look like it would be, it is just from your perspective. All right. There we go. Now we're going to try some of these calculations by using our Desmos calculator. And I always tell students, just let the formula guide you. What does the formula tell you to do? It says to use pi, and pi we know is 3.14 when we approximate it. And we have to approximate pi. We have to round it because it goes on forever. It's non-terminating, right, in decimal form. So since a number goes on for infinity and they haven't found the end of it yet, they've got supercomputers working on that. We can't write the entire number down. We'd be writing until, we're old age and still not get to the end. So we're just rounding it to the nearest hundredth, and we end up with 3.14, which is very close to pi in its entirety anyway. So we're going to use that to get an approximate volume. The radius squared is to take our radius, which in this case is the 7 on this pink, on this pink cylinder here. Keep doing that for some reason. Okay. So the radius, and have you noticed that they listed it underneath the cylinder here? Sometimes they write it inside the cylinder. Like sometimes it'll be like right here and it'll have like a 7 like there. Sometimes they'll put it on the top, but it'll be the same distance, regardless where they put the measurement, as long as you know what you're looking at. And then of course the distance between the 2 circles is the height. So 10 is going to be our height. I'm just going to write that down. And now we're going to calculate Radius squared would be radius times radius. And then, of course, when we multiply it times the height, that'll be times 10. Okay, so exponent of 2 means there's 2 7s, right? 7 times 7. Now, when we place that in our Desmos calculator, I'm just going to move it over here so we can kind of use this Desmos calculator. 3.14. Oops, what did I do wrong? Hang on. Let's clear that out. There we go. 3.14 times 7 times 7 times 10. And that gives us 1,538.6. 1,538.6. So I'm going to write that answer down as my approximate answer. 1,538.6. And that's going to be centimeters cubed because we're talking about volume. So centimeters and then a little tiny 3 exponent there for cubic centimeters. Okay, so that's the approximate value. Now, what do they mean by, varying solutions to this? Okay, because we were talking about varying solutions one day. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to erase all this. Okay. We're talking about a different type of way to write the solution to the volume, and that's called in terms of pi. In terms of pi is not an approximate value, it's more of an exact value, and here's why. Because we're not going to use this pi, this 3.14 here. We're going to do it a little differently. I'm going to change here, we'll use purple. Okay, we're not going to include the pi part here. What we are going to do is everything else. Okay, so if it says in terms of pi, sometimes they'll say exact answer instead of in terms of pi. It's the same thing. Okay, so we're going to do this part. 7 times 7 is 49. And then 49 times 10 over here gives us 490. And that's going to be what we use in terms of pi. And instead of calculating times pi, we're going to just write that little pi symbol right next to it. Oh, Tyson, here's my little kitty cat. All right, buddy. I'm filming a video, so you're going to have to go, honey. Catch you later. All right. And of course, it's centimeters cubed. Okay, so 490 pi, that's in terms of pi. Basically, we're not doing the pi part. We're saving the pi for last, just writing the symbol next to that number. Think of dessert, like when you're eating dinner and we save the dessert for last, we're saving the pi for last, right? When we're doing our answer in terms of pi, we're going to just multiply everything else and then put that number next to that symbol. And that symbol represents all of the digits of pi. Okay, so that's why it's called a more exact answer, because it'll be slightly different than the approximate answer if you calculated it with all the digits of pi, right? So let's try one more. We have another one coming up here. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. So the next one, let me erase all this. We'll do another whole example here. Okay, well, let's use orange or something as our pen color this time. All right, orange. All right, so volume equals pi, which is 3.14. We're going to do our approximate value first. So we're going to approximate pi by rounding it to the nearest hundredth there. And then our radius on this gray cylinder here is the 4. So I'm going to put a little r here for radius. And then the height is the 9 here, the distance between the two circles. And when we square the radius, that means we're going to do radius times radius. So radius times radius, 4 times 4. And then we're going to multiply that times the height, which is 9. Okay. Now we're going to get our Desmos calculator out here again. We're going to plug these numbers in. 3.14 times 4 times 4 times 9. And we end up with 552.16. So we're going to write that down right here. 452. I don't know why I said 500. 452.16. 452.16. And that's going to also be centimeters cubed. Okay. Now, this is our approximate answer, right? So if we're trying to find our answer in terms of pi, just erase that pi part, the 3.14 part, and you're going to get 144, which is just this part right here, right? Because 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 9 here. Oops, my 9s look weird. 16 times 9 is 144. And that is going to go right here in terms of pi answer, and you're just going to place it right next to that symbol for pi. This is 144 times pi, right? Save that pi for last, centimeters cubed. And now we've gotten both our answer, the approximate answer and the answer in terms of pi. Now, we need to also be on the lookout for some things that might happen when you're calculating pi in your calculations with volume. And that is, hang on, Tyson. Sorry, my kitty cat's meowing for me. Okay, so the radius, sometimes they'll give you a cylinder that looks like this, where they're not labeling the radius. This is the diameter. I know this because diameters go all the way across the circle. Okay, so diameter is always twice the radius. So if they give you a diameter, just divide it by 2 and you will get your radius. So in this case, and just be on the lookout for that, because sometimes people just see the numbers and they put them in the formula and don't think about, oh, is this a diameter? Is this a radius? Make sure you're using the radius in the formula, not the diameter. Okay, so 8 divided by 2 is going to give us a 4. And so the 4 is actually our radius. So if you put equals R. So here's the, formula again. It's pi times the radius squared times the height, right? And so we're going to fill that in. 3.14 times the radius, which in this case is 4, squared would be 4 times 4, times the height. And the height in this case is 10, the distance between the two circles. And we're going to plug that in our Desmos calculator over here. Let me move it over here so you can see the Desmos. And we end up with 3.14 times 4 times 4 times 10. And we end up with 502.4. So let's go ahead and write that down as our approximate value. 502.4, and again that's centimeters, so we're going to do centimeters cubed because we're talking about volume here. Okay, and then of course the in terms of pi answer would be just this part right here, not including the 3.14 part. So that would be 4 times 4, which is 16, and that times 10 is 160. If you're doing it in your Desmos calculator, you can just erase the 3.14 part and it's still going to give you the 160 that we need. And so it's 160. And then don't forget that pi symbol when you're giving your answer in terms of pi. That pi symbol will always be next to it. That means 160 times pi centimeters cubed. So look out for that diameter and don't use the diameter in your calculation because the radius is in the calculation, not the diameter. Also, on the lookout for pi buttons versus using 3.14. We ask students to use 3.14 because our state exam uses 3.14 in their calculations. But just know that the pi button will give you a very close answer, but it will not be exactly the same as the 3.14. So let me put this back. I'm going to put the 3.14 in again. And remember when we did that last cylinder, that gray cylinder, we got 502.4, we used 3.14. But you can, instead of using this, let me write that answer down. Hang on. Uh-oh. There we go. I have to move it every time. Okay, so let me change to, here, I'll change to blue again. Okay, so that answer was 500 and, oops, I erased that one. There it is. My goodness, it's pulling up the same one every time. Oh, it's right in front of me. 502.4. All right. Too much going on. Now, the reason I'm writing this down is because I want you guys to see how using the 3.14 and using the pi button are very similar, but just slightly off. Because if I change that 3.14 to the pi symbol, see how my answer kind of changed? And now it's 502.6, or actually it's 0.7 if you round up. Let me put that back. See, if you round it up, because this is a 5, so you would have to round that 6 up to a 7. So 502.7. Now, as you can see, it's still very, very close to what we used when we used what we got when we used 3.14, but it's just slightly off. So if you're doing like a multiple choice problem and there's like you use the pi button instead of 3.14 and you're getting something that's close but not exactly what's in your multiple choice, just know that you're probably right. You're probably just using the pi button instead of the 3.14. So I just wanted y'all to be on the lookout for that because that has confused some kids. But the reason why it's giving you slightly different answer is because this pi button incorporates a lot more digits of pi, not all of them. So it's still an approximation, but it still incorporates a lot more digits of pi than the 3.14 does. And because of that, it's more precise. The more digits you go out, when you're doing your calculations, the more precise your answer is going to be. So this is actually a more precise answer using the pi button. But just know that for your state exams and for many of our tests that we use, we are going to ask you to use 3.14 because it does help you to remember that 3.14 is the approximate value of pi. Okay, so let's review what we've done. Remember that when calculating the volume of a cylinder, we use the formula volume equals the radius squared times the height. Okay. Remember that the volume is measured in cubic units because we're measuring three-dimensional shapes and we're measuring the space inside of them. Remember to use 3.14 or the pi button. The answers for both will be approximate and very close to each other. And then remember to use the radius in the cylinder to calculate the volume, not the diameter. Divide the diameter by 2 to find the radius. And that's all for finding the volume of cylinders. So our next video is volume of cones. So we'll see you next time. And now it's time for me to say it was lovely teaching you math today. Bye-bye. Is it not working? Let's try it again. Bye.